I get talked about so bad. They'll be
I,
like,
I, I
look at
think
Judge
you would
Gray.
be. I think everyone would envy you, Judge. I think they would want one.
Oh man, these things are like they trap heat in. And Mr. Gray, are you there, sir? My name is Brad Gardner. I am a magistrate judge here in Clayton County. This is going to be your preliminary hearing. So I advise everyone that nothing that's said here is privileged or private. So please don't discuss or say anything that you wouldn't want the whole world to know. Do you understand that, sir? Okay. For the record, this is State of Georgia versus Lamario Gray. He's charged in warrant number 2022 WA 05206 with violation of Georgia Controlled Substance Act. He's charged in warrant number 2022 WA 05207 with possession of marijuana less than an ounce. That's a misdemeanor offense. And he's charged in warrant number 2022 WA 05211 with another allegation of violation of Georgia Controlled Substance Act. Mr. Gray is in court here. He's being represented by Mr. Rogers, who's also present. The state is being represented by Ms. Freeman. Ms. Freeman, you can swear in your witness and present your case.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Moss, would you raise your right hand, please?
Yes.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony about to provide in the matter of State of Georgia versus Lamario Gray will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
Officer Norris Moss. I'm employed with the City of Forest Park Police Department.
How long have you worked with the Forest Park Police Department?
Since December of 2020.
Sir, were you working with the Forest Park Police Department on March 21st of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
And on that particular day, were you dispatched to an area off Old Dixie Road regarding a male pushing a shopping cart?
Correct.
And what about the male pushing the shopping cart was unique that called you out to that area?
It was 1:27 a.m. and he had the cart had 4 rims and tires on it, and this is suspicious.
You said the shopping cart had rims and tires on it?
Yes, sir. It was 3 on top and 1 at the bottom on the cart.
Oh, like inside of the shopping cart?
Yes.
Okay.
It was three stacked on top of it in the inside, and then there was 1 at the bottom.
Okay. I thought from your testimony, like the shopping cart actually had 4,
oh, no.
4 rims and tires on it. Okay. I apologize.
Officer Moss, did you canvass the area?
Yes.
Were you able to make contact with this individual with the shopping cart and the tires?
Yes, that's correct.
Were you able to identify the individual?
Yes.
And who was he?
Lamario Gray.
So tell us about what happened when you stopped Mr. Gray.
Mr. Gray at the 300 block of Forest Parkway. Upon arrival, I saw him standing there with he had just stopped pushing the cart. He was sweating profusely. I'm assuming he was tired from pushing. I stopped and just to make contact with him to see, where he could have possibly got the rims and tires from. Apparently, again, it was 1:27 in the morning. He advised me that he found the tires in the backside of a trailer park on Old Dixie Road. So then he stated, I asked him for his information as far as his name and date of birth, because he said he didn't have an ID. I went to the vehicle, I ran his name and date of birth. He was clear of any wants or anything. So I went back to him and I questioned him more about the rims and tires. He asked me were they stolen, and I said at this time I don't have any information as far as the tires or rims are stolen. But I asked him. I started questioning him more because he wouldn't give me a clear answer as far as where the rims and tires came from. So I asked him, could he remove the tires from the shopping cart? And then he stated, no, you moved the tires from the shopping cart. Around that time, I had some backup arrive to assist. So since he gave me permission to take the rims off the shopping cart, I took the rims off the shopping cart. Then after I took them off, I could see in the shopping cart, there was a jacket and a pair of sweatpants, and it was full of bulky items. When I asked him what was in the shopping cart, he said he didn't know. He said he found the shopping cart in the bushes. And so then I just to check and make sure nothing, suspicious was in there, because we have a lot of recycling places in Forest Park where people dumpster dive. We have one recycling plant that don't allow people to take anything from it. And then we have one, I found out, this is a wholesale, they don't have any issue with anybody getting anything out the trash. But they're verifying what's in it. The sleeve area of the jacket was hanging out of the shopping cart. So after we removed the rims, I pulled out, there was a box. I just pulled it out the sleeve. And when I pulled out the sleeve, two plastic bags fell out on the floor, on the ground. One plastic bag had 3 additional bags, Ziploc sandwich bags inside, which contained the crystal-like, rock-like substance. The other sandwich bag had 3 additional bags, which were tied up inside, which contained green leafy substance consistent with marijuana. So then I go to question him some more. At this point, he's been detained. And then he states that the rims, he found the rims beside the street. After that, we took his book bag off, and we searched his book bag. His book bag contained a pill bottle that didn't belong to him. It was an expired pill bottle. It expired March 9th of 2021. It was prescribed to a Garrett Lavelle, and the pills inside the bottle was crushed up. He advised that that's the medication he was taking because for pain, because he was hit by a MARTA bus. At that point, he was placed under arrest. We went back to the station, tested the drugs. The marijuana, the green leafy substance tested positive for marijuana. The crystal-like subject tested positive for methamphetamine, and then the pill bottle tested positive for opiums. And as far as the stuff that was located, there were over 16 cases of condoms. I think there were 24 1-liter bottles of drinks, soft drinks. All of that stuff was placed into safekeeping, and it still remains in safekeeping until he's released. He can come and pick it up. And as far as the rims are concerned, due to him not giving me any information as far as where the rims actually came from, they've been placed in safekeeping until someone may report them missing or until the owner claimed the property.
Did Mr. Gray make any statements about the drugs that were found?
Yes, I left that part out. He stated while we searched the bag, he stated that the only drugs that he do is he stated he does ice, and he said he smokes marijuana, and ice is the term that's used for crystal meth.
Did all of this take place in Clayton County?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Mr. Rogers. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
Good. Okay. All right, Officer Moss. I think I'm a little unclear. Why you said that you responded to this location because there was somebody pushing a grocery cart with rims, tires and rims in it? Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you say that somebody reported this, is somebody reporting a theft of these tires and rims?
No, a sergeant, one of our sergeants at the Forest Park Police Department, she actually lives in the city. She stated she was headed home and she observed the mail. It was 1:30 in the morning. She observed the mail pushing a shopping cart with 4 rims and tires. It could possibly be stolen.
Okay. And when you say could possibly be stolen, it could possibly not be stolen too, correct?
Correct.
Did you have any information to indicate one way or the other?
As far as the rims being stolen, no, because they don't have serial numbers on them. So the only way I would know is if the email was sent out. But it could have been something that just occurred.
And let me ask this. So when you're making contact with Mr. Gray, you're in your vehicle or something?
Yes, I arrived in my vehicle, yes.
Are you by yourself?
Yes.
And do any other officers respond while you're on scene?
Yes. 3 additional officers arrived, and including my sergeant.
And about what point in the process they all arrived?
When after I initially questioned Mr. Gray, my coworker, 2 of my coworkers arrived, and that would have been possibly, I want to say, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Then it's 1:30 in the morning, and City and Forest Park. Not much going on at that point. So if I'm by myself, somebody's gonna always back me up.
And when these other officers arrived, had you already searched the car at that point?
No.
So when you get out of the car, do you recall, well, I don't want to assume too much, when you first arrive on the scene, what do you say to Mr. Gray?
I stop and I speak to him, and I ask him, I tell him who I am. I ask him where he's coming from, where you get the rims and tires from. And that's the initial question I ask.
And then at some point, I'm assuming you get out of the car, is that correct?
Yes, I asked that out. I didn't ask it in the car. I got out of the car first, made contact with him.
And then, do you, at any point during this conversation, when it's just you and Mr. Gray, at any point, do you Mirandize him or anything like that?
No, because he was not on arrest.
And when the other officers show up, do you all Mirandize him at that point?
No, because he still wasn't under arrest when the other officers arrived.
So it's your position that Mr. Gray was free to leave when the other officers arrived?
No, he was still talking. He was still talking to me. He was very compliant at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear. I was saying, when the other officers arrived, is Mr. Gray still free to leave at that point?
And yes, he was. He was.
Does anybody convey that to Mr. Gray?
No.
This the contact. Let me ask a couple of things. I guess when you pull up in the car, do you know if there's like any kind of dash cam or body cam footage of your contact with Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Which one?
It's both dash and body cam.
And as far as you know, your body cam was working that day and recorded everything?
Yes.
And so he lets you take a look at the tires, correct?
Well, he told me to remove the tires.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. He lets you take a look at the tires, right? And so
Yes.
you take a look at the tires, and I think you said there's no serial numbers on them, correct?
Correct.
So there's nothing. That's not, the serial numbers don't indicate that the tires or stolen because there are no serial numbers, correct?
Correct.
And as far as you know, there's no recent report of thefts or anything of tires or rims or anything.
Correct.
And then once you remove the tires, I guess I'm trying to get clear. What leads to the search of the rest of the car at that point?
Well, he at that point he started to state that the car didn't belong to him. I asked him for permission. He gave me permission to go in the car.
And at this point, this is what's all the other officers seen and everything.
Correct.
And then you said at that point is once the search occurs and you find. Well, let me ask you this. Do you tell them what you want to search the car for?
Remember. Yes, when I removed the rims from the tire and rims from the car, I asked him, you could see that there's a big bulge of items that's looked like it was intentionally hidden in the shirt, in the pants. But at that point, he was stating the car didn't belong to him anymore. Once the stuff fell out of the sleeve.
But you are saying you saw him in possession of the car when you arrived, correct?
Correct. He had when he was pushing, he stopped when I pulled up. It was like he may have been taking a break. And he was sweating profusely.
And do you ever find any drugs on Mr. Gray's person?
Yes. He had a backpack on. Inside his backpack, there was a pill bottle with a substance. It was crushed pills that did not belong to him, and it was tested and tested positive for opium.
And I think you mentioned. So you're saying that the marijuana, and I believe you said there was one other drug found in the sleeve or something. You were saying?
Actually, when the box came out the sleeve, the marijuana and the crystal meth fell to the ground out of the sleeve. 2 bags fell on the ground.
Oh, let's see. And so when he's taken into custody, was he? I know you said you did. Well, let me make sure I'm correct. You said you identified the drugs once he been taken into custody. He was back at the precinct or something. Is that correct?
Yes, the drugs were. Once he was taken. Only one person on our team is certified, besides the supervisor, and that's Corporal Green. She's certified to a Georgia certified marijuana examiner, and at that point, she has to actually take the drugs, take the marijuana. Anybody can test for opiates and crystal meth, because it's just a test kit, and you just insert some inside of the kit. And but she's the only person on my team that can test for marijuana. And she took it back to the department to test all the drugs, which it all tested positive, and it was placed in evidence.
Okay, and we're just about done here, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. So, does any testing of drugs occur in the field? Mr. Gray is taken into custody.
Technically, no. We don't. I haven't. Not in my time of working at Forest Park, we haven't actually tested drugs in the field. We take it back to the department and test it.
So, when you're taking him from the street back to the apartment, what is he charged with at that point? What's he charged about?
At that point, he was charged for possession of marijuana, and because everybody knows what. I mean, this time frame, everybody knows what marijuana and the consistency of marijuana is. So, I mean, just having those those items, including the crystallite meth and also the pill bottle that doesn't belong to him, that's enough to just take him in prior to the testing. Because once we test it, it goes, after we complete the test, it goes to the GBI for further testing.
Just so I'm clear, so he's originally being taken into custody for marijuana. Is that correct?
No, he's been taken in custody for all of it.
But you hadn't tested anything at that point.
At the beginning, no.
Oh, so I think that I have one more, but I think that's just about it.
Did you say you have one more question?
I was just double checking, but I don't think
Okay.
so. No further questions at this time.
Okay, any follow-up, Ms. Freeman?
No, Your Honor, the state rests.
Okay, do you have any questions or any evidence that you're going to present, Mr. Rogers?
No, sir. I'm just, I'll just say just argument, Your Honor. No witnesses.
Okay. Officer Moss, I want you to hang on for a minute while I listen to the argument. Because the one question I have is, was the shopping cart taken into evidence?
Yes, everything that was in the cart, well, the shopping cart appeared to belong to Family Dollars. So everything that was inside the shopping cart was taken to the department. Being that Gundy Wholesale allowed people to dumpster dive and take their items that are expired, and items were also expired that was in the buggy. Those items were placed into safekeeping for him to get when he get released. So, but as far as the shopping cart,
but not the shopping cart.
Right, the actual shopping cart itself, it went to Family Dollar because it looked like a Family Dollar shopping cart.
Okay. Any other follow-up questions based upon the question I asked Officer Moss?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so I still want you to hold back, Officer Moss, because this is the most interesting case that I've had today. Ms. Freeman, I'm assuming that you are going to waive opening.
I am, Judge.
Mr. Rogers, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I would say, I guess. And the first issue I would take with it is that this does not sound like a lawful detention under the circumstances. It's essentially not even articulable suspicion. It's the mere possibility that somebody may have something that has been stolen. That's always a possibility. The officer might have something that may have been stolen. Anybody could. It's always a possibility. So that's not a basis to stop anybody, start going through anything that they're in possession of, or pushing any carts they may be pushing, or things of that nature. So I would say that's the first issue I have with this case, is that essentially everything that flows from it is essentially the product of an unlawful detention. Additionally, the search doesn't occur until 3 to 4 other officers have arrived. At that point, Mr. Gray is under arrest. He's not free to leave. So this whole case is essentially the fruit of a poisonous tree, in that there's no basis to stop Mr. Gray against his will. But then you have 3 or 4 officers show up, but he's still free to leave. But it's not clear to me why you need three other officers to help one other officer release somebody to let them go. So under those circumstances, there's no reason for Mr. Gray to feel like he's free to leave at that point. And I understand that, a lot of this is going to a Fourth Amendment issue, but ultimately at this point, we're kind of waffling between it's not his car, he's been dumpster diving, and he's got these items in here which are the basis for the charges. But at the end of the day, I don't know that we can have it both ways, that on the one hand, it's not his car, but now these items are a basis to charge him. Additionally, when they take him into custody, there's no basis to have charged him with these drugs. Now, if you can just charge people with a crime, snatch them off the street, and figure it out later, then, I don't know what country this is anymore, but that's not how it's supposed to work. If you don't have drugs to say that this man has X, Y, and Z drugs on the street, I'm not sure how he's ended up at the precinct. Additionally, as it relates to the identification of the marijuana, I would just say that there was no testimony regarding the knowledge, training, and experience of the officer on any kind of THC levels, which is relevant to a determination of whether or not something is marijuana versus hemp. The mere fact that it looks like weed is not enough to establish that it is weed, especially now that we've legalized hemp. So for all those reasons, John, I would ask that all the charges be dismissed for lack of probable cause for the charges and for the stop.
So let's assume that I agree with you about the stop. This is not the time to make that determination.
I would agree.
And go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off, Your Honor. I wanted to make sure I was being kind of clear. I would at least, to the extent that the court intends to keep it going, I hope that the court might take that into account from a bond standpoint. I probably should have said that.
Well, and I do have something to say. And Ms. Freeman, because I'm gonna waste time, I am gonna bind these charges over. So you don't have to make an argument, but I wanted to talk to Officer Moss and just to tell you that as a citizen, I appreciate, a police officer being curious and stopping and asking questions. As a lawyer, I think Mr. Rogers is going to have a lot of fun when this gets to the next stage and he's filing motions to suppress. Because, you still there? Oh,
yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
No problem. Because I think it was a tier 1 encounter. And even if you argue consent, when he said, "Will you take the tires out?" It was for the tires. It wasn't for anything that was there. And the reason I asked the question about the shopping cart is that generally shopping carts are not like sold on the third market. So if a person is pushing a shopping cart and they're not in the parking lot, there's good reason to believe that that person may not be in lawful possession of the shopping cart. And so that may save you on the back end. But I do see some tier 1 issues with the stop and probable cause at the time of the interaction. But you got smart people in the DA's office, and they're paid a good chunk of money to fight those issues. And Mr. Rogers is paid a good chunk of money to argue those issues. So we'll just see what happens. But this has been an interesting case, because I sat there and listened to this, and I was going back and forth with the issues. And I understand Mr. Rogers' argument, but this isn't the time for that. And he may be successful, on the back end, because I've won motions to suppress where an officer client was clearly doing something wrong, and the officer knew their spidey sense, but they blocked the person in before they detained the person before they had a reason to detain the person. And they detained the person to ask questions that they clearly were from, their just common sense, knew things were going wrong, but you got to do it the right way. So I just wanted to say that because, I do appreciate officers taking their job seriously. And if they see something that they think is wrong, that they try to at least investigate it. So you may lose, but you're out there trying to do the right thing. So anything else, Officer Moss?
Oh, no, none of this time.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you for your time. You are free to go. What's our next case? I see we have Officer Molina.
Yes, the officer is on Gibson, but I wanted to, before